You don't wake up in your 40s feeling broke. You wake up feeling stuck. Bills are getting paid, life looks busy on paper, but somehow money still feels heavier than it should. You've been working for years, making decisions, handling responsibilities, often choosing what was responsible over what was exciting, doing what needed to be done, not what felt optional. And yet, when you pause and really think about it, it doesn't feel like things moved forward the way you expected. Not worse, just not better. And at this stage of life, that gap is harder to ignore. Not because something went wrong, but because you expected the picture to be clearer by now. That quiet feeling, the sense that stability should feel more solid than this, is where this conversation really begins. And when that feeling shows up, most people don't question the structure behind it. They assume this is just how things are supposed to feel now, which usually means there's a belief underneath it, one that sounds reasonable but quietly shapes expectations. You believe this stage of life is supposed to feel different, that by your 40s, money should finally feel settled. Not perfect, just more predictable, more stable. There's an assumption that if you've worked consistently, avoided major mistakes, and stayed responsible, things should naturally fall into place. That progress should feel obvious by now. That effort should start paying you back. In your 30s, effort often does feel like progress. You work more, you earn more, things improve. But in your 40s, the same effort often just keeps things running. Bills still get paid, life stays functional, but nothing really pulls ahead. Effort by itself doesn't build momentum the way you expect it to. So instead of clarity, there's uncertainty. Instead of momentum, there's maintenance. Instead of feeling ahead, it feels like you're just staying afloat. And the confusing part is this: nothing looks wrong on paper. Nothing looks broken from the outside. You did what you were supposed to do, played it safe, stayed responsible. So when stability doesn't arrive the way you thought it would, you quietly assume the problem must be you. Especially when it looks like others, coworkers, friends, people of your age, somehow figured it out more easily. That unspoken belief that if you just stay responsible long enough, stability will eventually show up, is where you get stuck without realizing it. And before you start picking apart every decision you've made, it helps to slow this down for a moment. Because understanding this isn't about fixing anything yet. It's about seeing the situation clearly. This conversation is different. I'm not here to sell quick fixes, hacks, or dramatic financial makeovers. And I'm definitely not here to tear apart your past decisions and tell you where you messed up. My name is Finn. I spend my time studying how money systems actually behave in real life, inside busy lives, with responsibilities, pressure, and limited margin, not in perfect scenarios and not in extremes. And if this way of thinking about money feels familiar to you, you might want to subscribe. This channel is about helping effort finally stop carrying everything. When money feels heavy in your 40s, it's rarely because of one bad decision. It's usually because a lot of reasonable decisions quietly started interacting with each other. Things that worked well on their own, being careful, staying consistent, avoiding risk, start producing a different result when life gets more complex. Think of it like this. If you're driving on a straight road, small steering adjustments don't matter much. But once the road curves, the same habits can slowly pull you off course, even if nothing feels wrong. That's what this video is really about. Not fixing mistakes, not rewriting your past, but understanding how a financial setup that once kept you safe can slowly turn into something that just keeps you busy. Because once you see that clearly, the question stops being, "What did I do wrong?" and becomes something much useful. What kind of system did I build, and what is it quietly training me to do every day? That's where the real patterns begin to show. The issue usually isn't income, and it's rarely an effort. Most people in their 40s aren't stuck because they didn't work hard enough. They're stuck because they built their financial life around short-term stability, not long-term systems. And that made sense at first. In your 20s and early 30s, the goal is simple. Pay the bills, reduce stress, stay afloat, avoid obvious mistakes. So you make choices that prioritize certainty, predictable income, safe decisions, avoiding risk wherever possible. Those choices work for a while, but over time, something subtle shifts. As responsibilities grow and margin shrinks, those same habits stop creating progress and start requiring constant attention. A lot of financial researchers point out a similar pattern. Early financial habits are great at preventing loss, but weak at creating momentum. Your finances quietly move into maintenance mode, busy but never ahead, careful but not compounding. You're not building momentum, you're focused on making sure nothing slips. And the reason this is so hard to notice is because nothing actually breaks. Bills still get paid, life keeps moving. From the outside, everything looks fine, which makes it hard to explain why it still feels heavy, why staying steady takes so much mental energy, why letting go even a little feels risky. A simple way to think about it is, if your expenses quietly rise 4 to 5% a year, but your financial structure stays the same, standing still isn't neutral, it's gradual erosion. In your 30s, time covers that gap. In your 40s, structure has to. This isn't a motivation problem, and it's not about discipline. It's what happens when a system designed for survival, how money flows, how decisions get made, how risk is avoided, never gets upgraded for growth. And when a system stays focused on stability for too long, it starts producing the same kinds of behaviors, not suddenly, but quietly.
Once finances slip into maintenance mode, a few quiet patterns start to form. They don't look like mistakes. That's why almost everyone misses them. Think of it like driving a car. For years, you've been pressing the brake just enough to avoid accidents. You're focused on control, not speed. The problem is, you never press the accelerator. Pattern is playing defense forever. You don't feel like you are avoiding growth. You feel like you are being careful. So decisions sound like this. Let's not rock the boat. Let's just get through this year. We'll think bigger later. But later keeps moving. Your money becomes something you manage, not something that moves forward. Like keeping water from spilling, instead of letting it flow somewhere useful. Confusing busyness with progress. This is another quiet trap. You're doing a lot with money. Tracking, paying, adjusting, reacting. It feels productive, but it's like running on a treadmill. You're exhausted, yet still in the same place. Activity replaces direction. So even good habits don't create momentum, they just prevent collapse. Third pattern is avoiding decisions that change the game. This one is subtle. You don't avoid decisions completely. You avoid uncomfortable ones, the kind that temporarily reduce certainty before they create stability. So instead of asking, is this system actually helping me grow? You ask, can I handle this safely right now? It's like rearranging furniture instead of fixing the foundation. Everything looks organized, but nothing feels stronger. Why these patterns feel smart but are not sustainable? The important part is that these patterns aren't lazy, they're not ignorant, they're protective. They come from years of responsibility, jobs, families, obligations, and pressure. Your brain learns one rule: don't lose what you have. The problem is, that rule works best when life is simple. As life gets heavier, that same rule quietly blocks growth. You're not failing the system is outdated. Earlier in life, these patterns are forgiving, but as time moves forward, the margin around them slowly tightens, and that's where age begins to matter.
Where age quietly changes the equation, not in a dramatic way. in a practical one. In your 20s and early 30s, you have slack. Time is wide. Energy is high. Mistakes are easier to undo. If something doesn't work, you have room to reset. Your 40s are different. Not worse, just tighter. Think of it like packing a suitcase. Early on, there's space to move things around. You can repack, shift, even start over. Later, the suitcase is full. Every new item has a cost. To add something, something else has to move. That's what margin looks like in real life. Less margin, not less ability. This isn't about losing skill or intelligence. It's about fewer empty spaces, more fixed expenses, more people depend on you, more decisions already locked in. So small inefficiencies matter more. A decision that only slowed you down in your 30s can stall you in your 40s. Not because it's wrong, but because there's less room to absorb it. Here's a simple comparison. Two people, both in their 40s, both earning similar income, both responsible, both careful. The difference isn't effort, it's structure. One person set things up so that a portion of their income moves automatically, savings, investing, future planning, before daily life touches it. Nothing fancy, just consistent systems. When expenses rise slightly, the system adjusts. Progress slows, but doesn't stop. The other person does most things manually. They save when there's extra. They plan when things calm down. They adjust only when something forces it. They're not reckless. They're just reactive. In their 30s, both approaches worked. In their 40s, only one compounds. You think why maintenance mode gets riskier now. Earlier, maintenance mode was harmless. It kept things stable while you figured life out. But now, maintenance has a hidden cost. If your system doesn't move forward, time moves it backward. Not suddenly, gradually, like standing still on an escalator that's slowly going down. You don't feel the drop right away, but standing still is no longer neutral. Here's what that looks like in real life. A few % increase in expenses, a few delayed decisions, a few years of "I'll handle it later." Individually, none of it feels dangerous. Together, they quietly eat margin. Let's talk about the quiet pressure nobody talks about. This is where the mental load increases. You start thinking, I don't have time to experiment. I can't afford to be wrong. Now isn't the moment to make mistakes. So you grip tighter. And the tighter you grip, the harder growth becomes. That's the loop. Not fear, just physics. Less margin means systems matter more than effort. And once margin shrinks, something else shifts too. Not in the numbers, but in how risk starts to feel.
The biggest thing holding you back in your 40s isn't lack of knowledge. It's not discipline. It's not motivation. It's the need to protect what you've already built. At this stage of life, your financial setup isn't just about money anymore. It's about safety. Earlier in life, change felt exciting. You could try things. You could recover. Now, change feels disruptive. Not because you're weaker, but because stability took real effort to build. You didn't stumble into it. You worked for it. So your brain treats stability like something fragile, something that could crack if you touch it the wrong way. That's the trap. You slowly shift from building to protecting, from progress to defense. Not consciously, automatically. Picture standing on a small boat. In your 20s, the boat was light. If it rocked, you adjusted. In your 40s, the boat is heavier. Family, responsibilities, fixed costs, people counting on you. So you stop moving. Not because movement is bad, but because rocking the boat feels risky. Even small changes start to feel bigger than they are. Doing nothing feels safer than doing something imperfect. Think about two people in their 40s. Both notice their finances feel tight. Both understand they should plan longer term. One makes a small structural change, automatic saving, clearer boundaries, fewer decisions. It feels uncomfortable at first, but stability holds. The other keeps everything the same because it works for now.
No disaster happens, nothing breaks, but year by year, the gap between them grows. Not because one is smarter, but because one moved from protection to design. This is important. You already see the problem. You know, I should be saving differently. I should be investing with more intention. I should be thinking further ahead. Knowledge isn't the issue. The issue is that acting feels like it threatens stability. So insight turns into hesitation, and hesitation slowly turns into identity. This is just how things are now. Playing defense feels responsible, but over time it creates tension, because deep down, you're not just protecting what you have, you're postponing what you could become. And that gap creates friction. Not panic, not crisis, just a steady feeling that something important is being delayed. Which is why stability eventually stops coming from effort. Not because effort fails, but because effort was never meant to carry everything. The shift most people never make, real stability doesn't come from holding everything steady. It comes from building systems that don't need your constant attention. Think about it like this: control versus support. Right now, a lot of people in their 40s are doing something very specific. They're holding a heavy shelf up with their hands. As long as they keep pushing, things stay in place. Life works. Bills get paid. Nothing collapses. But their arms are tired. And the fear isn't that the shelf is falling. It's the thought that if they ever let go, even briefly, nothing will catch it. That's control-based stability. It works, but it requires you to stay tense. You might think, what systems actually change? A system is like installing brackets under the shelf. The weight doesn't disappear. Life is still full, but you're no longer the one carrying it. And here's the important part. Being responsible doesn't mean carrying everything yourself. It means making sure things hold even when you're not thinking about them. Are you thinking why this feels uncomfortable at first? This is where people hesitate, because systems feel quiet. They don't give you that immediate sense of effort, that feeling of, I'm on top of things. And if you've spent years being careful, letting go even a little can feel irresponsible, like you're tempting fate. But what you're really doing is reducing how many decisions depend on your energy. Fewer moments where you have to get it right. Fewer times money needs your attention to behave. Where calm growth comes from? Are you curious about it? Let's dive into it. Growth doesn't require drama. At this stage of life, it comes from alignment. Money flowing in a way that doesn't need daily supervision. Decisions repeating without constant reevaluation. Progress happening quietly in the background. That's what systems provide. Not excitement, relief. So what will be your goal? The goal isn't to undo what you've built. It's to stop being the only thing holding it together. To upgrade the structure underneath your life so effort stops being the engine and stability becomes something you stand on, not something you have to defend. And once you see that clearly, there's nothing urgent to do, just something important to notice. If any of this feels familiar, there's nothing wrong with you. It means you adapted. You built something that kept life steady when things were uncertain, and that mattered. But the fact that it worked once doesn't mean it's meant to work forever, especially at this stage of life. You're not late, you're not behind, you're simply noticing that the system you're using was designed for a different version of you, and noticing that is already a form of progress. You don't need to solve everything right now. You don't need a perfect plan tonight. The first step isn't action, it's awareness. Seeing where effort is still doing work that structure should be doing instead. That question alone is enough to sit with for a while, because clarity doesn't rush, and real change doesn't announce itself loudly. It starts quietly when you stop blaming yourself and start looking at what's underneath. And from there, progress doesn't feel dramatic, it feels steady. If this way of thinking resonates, you'll want to stay with this conversation, because the next step isn't about doing more, it's about designing life so less effort is required. That's what we'll unpack next.